Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reacher Season 3, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode. McKay, his guys show up, and obviously they still can't get in contact with Duffy and Villanueva, and so Reacher calls Elliot. Elliot calls them on the phone in the building, and luckily, Duffy ended up picking up the phone because she's like, "It's weird. Why would they be calling here? Like that doesn't make any sense." And it keeps going and going and going. And our cell phones aren't working here. Luckily, she got the notice at the gesture. I was scared. I talked about it last episode. The person that is on my Deadpool list for this situation was going to be Villanueva. I was like, it just set up where he didn't kind of want to be a part of this, but he kind of went along for Duffy's sake. And so I was just like, he's like, oh, I'm too, like, he's basically Danny Glover's character, kind of like, I'm too old for this shit type of thing. And I was like, it's got to be him, right? So kind of rowing on a lot of accounts, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, like Duffy's the one who almost caught the shot. So they're firing off. Reacher sneaks in. And I love that whole thing he does with the guy. The guy's like, oh, okay, you must be Beck's guy. All right, let's go this way, that. And Reacher gives him a nod like, okay, moment his back turned. Pow. I was like, it's so morbid. I laughed out loud because I was like, that's so fucked up. Because you knew it was coming, but still, like, it's super effed up that I laughed about that. But I love that because it just felt like, yeah, that was how that was going to go. Duffy took down the other guy. I don't know why, like, when it comes to a shootout type of thing, I don't know why I'm a fan of, like, going for the leg and then, like, shooting them when they fall down. I don't know, like, that just, like, in that shootout action type of thing, that's always, like a cool thing to me. But when it comes to the last guy, Harley, Reacher was like, don't kill him. If it ends up being a situation where I'm another person who's the only survivor, it's going to look suspicious. So 2 of them are dead. Get out of here. So Reacher basically rained hellfire from above, so Harley couldn't see him. But it's like, right, he thinks it's these guys. I thought Duffy was screwed because she dropped her badge. I was like, oh god, that's going to come back to bite her. But then when Reacher picked it up, I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, oh, because now you're going to know cops are involved. So I thought Harley figured it out on his own, being like, I think they're fed. So just like well, he specifically reported that, not to McCabe. He reported to McCabe, Quinn, and not Beck, I think. But I was like, oh man, I thought that badge thing was going to go somewhere. And we find out later on where it goes because Reacher has to hide it in his room. I'm like, where are you going to hide that? He's about to hide it under bed. I'm like, don't do that. That seems too simple. I'm like, wherever you're going to hide it is not going to... Well, at first I was like, well, it seems like he's going to hide it in the actual pillow itself and not just the pillow casing, but like he was going to tear open the pillow, but he got distracted. So I think all he had time to do was just put it in the casing, but... Because it didn't look like it was inside the pillow. It looked like it was just inside the casing of the pillow. And I was just like, oh boy. I was like, that's just that's a situation just waiting to explode. So, but yeah, when it's all said and done, Duffy and Villanueva luckily got away, and they end up having a conversation where Billy's just kind of like, man, I don't like. He's kind of basically trying to get her prepared for like what the outcome of this could be, and I kind of figured as much. There's no confirmation. Teresa's got to be dead. Now, there's always a good chance that she won't be, because wasn't Home Dude from season 1? He was kind of thought to be dead for like most of that season, and then you find out, oh no, he's still alive. So there's always a possibility. But the moment they introduced the spot where Harley like helps toss bodies, I was like, I don't know if Reacher figured in that moment, because when he was just staring, kind of being like, well, that could easily be me if I mess up. But I thought he was thinking in that moment, there's a good chance Teresa's body, I mean, we know she was on the property and she's no longer here. They could have moved her somewhere else, but there's a good possibility she's here. And so I'm sure like he never really directly brings up the conversation of Teresa with this recent discovery of where they potentially do dump bodies. They kind of get swept up by the riptide and stuff. So I think he, because he probably wanted to be as sensitive on it, considering like he wanted Duffy to still have some hope. But anyway, that ties back into the whole, like, Duffy had talked about a previous case where like a kid had gone missing, but basically the culprit was an old man who had Alzheimer's and confused the kid for his grandson. And it's like, right, the kid was taken care of. He was taking, like, the only reason why he was found is because the old man like walked into like took the kid and walked into a store or whatever and got like ice cream and like a diet what's a diet Dr. Pepper, like a diet soda or something like that. And that's how that situation is. So it's like, right, this was like 9 months later. Everyone had pretty much given up. They had a funeral for him and everything. He just assumed. And now it turns out like he was okay. The kid's 14 now. And he's on the football team, yada, 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 saying like, right, you just got to have a little faith. So it's like either you're on this ride with me, Villanueva, or you can just shut up. And he's just like, okay. So he does, because he knows how important this is for Duffy. As we learned last episode, she has a lot of guilt because she's the one that she forced Teresa to do this. You know, it's like, right, she lied to her and manipulated her into becoming her CI. So it's like she feels personally responsible. So it's like if anything happens to this innocent girl, it's on me. So the next two things that pop in my head that I want to talk about are like the two saddest points of this episode. This episode was a gut punch. On the Elliot front and the Annette front, I did not see the Annette situation happening and coming. I was like, that they made sure like, oh, you thought you feel bad just because of the Elliot situation, which that was brutal, dude. I said it previously, and Elliot's death this episode makes me feel like, yeah, it's probably going to go down the way I figured it will. Duffy is going to survive, but Villanueva and now Elliot, but Billy seems even more likely. Like, he already seemed likely to die to me. He seems even more likely, especially some of the dialogue. This episode makes me feel like, yeah, we're throwing up all the flags. But that might be the thing of, just because we have all these flags on him, he won't die. But then I'm like, I don't think it would be Duffy, but the fact is, you never know. It could be Duffy. Neither one of them is guaranteed. But I felt like out of anyone, Elliot could easily catch it, and he did. I just didn't know how Cooper was going to do it, because he's asking for a cigarette. I'm like, what is that going to do? And he puts the alcohol in his mouth. Didn't do it the way I thought he would. I mean, I figured like alcohol and the flame from the lighter, sure, but I didn't know how he was going to utilize that the way he did. And he proceeded to stomp Elliot in. I was like, damn, dude. I was like, that's such a brutal way to go. I was like, please tell me, is there a chance he's still alive? It's like, no, because he's not blinking or moving. I was like, that sucks. And Cooper's last line to him, thanks for the cigarette. You're like, oh, that, because he's like a kid. Like, he's in his 20s, but still, it's like, he's, and once again, Duffy's guilt over, I'm kind of forced him here, and once again, he's kind of the rookie, and so you feel even more guilty about it. It just sucks. So she calls up Reacher to let him know like what's going on. They call Billy and let him know and Billy just even more determined, like, all right, let me do what Reacher wants me to do, because it's like, yo, it sucks that kid died, and this bastard, we got to make sure he doesn't talk to Beck, because if he does, it's game over. So Reacher's able to, he got, what was it, Duffy to shoot I don't know if that was his idea or that was her just freestyling, her taking out the power to the city, shooting it seemed like she shot the transformer, and a transformer, and then he met up with Billy, and they proceeded to flip a car over, which he's like, I love Reacher being like, I will do 90% of the work, and he does it, and they end up doing it. I even love Billy's almost like, holy shit, we did that. We just flipped the fucking car. But yeah, then he has him getting inside, and it's just like, Reacher's calculated things. He's like, there's a room for error. If he's going like 70 miles, he'll stop. That gives you like, what was it, like, was he like 490 feet? It was like a good chunk of feet. And I love Billy's like, well, what if he doesn't, you hit the brakes in time? And Richard's like, do all your like pension and stuff like that, does that go to your wife? And he's like, you asshole. Because Billy's like, I was like 5 months away from retirement, so my plan was to write it out at the desk. But then, Duffy brought me in. He's like, I've known Duffy since she was a boot. So it's like, it feels like I got to see this through with her. But it's like, yeah, and I'm most likely going to get rear-ended by that asshole as he drives. Sideswipe, because you're kind of on your side. And you're upside down and on your side, so if he doesn't slow down in time. So, but Reacher's math was right. I don't know if that was the 10 feet like buffer zone that he told you, where it looked closer, but I can't eye that. But I was so glad when Cooper it's that thing when like you almost want the person to get it worse than they got, because he stomped Elliot out, and just for him to catch it, easy headshot, just like, you want the bastard to suffer. You'd want him to see it coming, but it's like, no, why do that? No, take him out. We ain't here to be cute. We ain't here to get our get back. Well, we're killing him. That's getting our get back. We're not going to be cute about it. We're just going to take him out. So it's like Billy says later on, like, put his body in a trunk and stuff like that. And it's just like, he'll flip the car over and everything. Well, Reacher's like, no, I'll do it. Don't want you to die from like a cornea. So that situation was nipped in the bud. But sadly, while this was all going down, they're searching everyone's room because it was specifically McCabe's idea. And I was praying the entire time. I was like, well, we see the room and we see the badge. I was like, are we going to find out that Reacher I was like, no, because that was his room. Because it's like that one bag in the closet with all the clothes he had on previous. So I was like, no, it's definitely Reacher's room. And I wonder, I was like, there's no way like that's someone else's room and he put the badge on someone. So when he gets back and I'm like, oh boy, where's this going to go? We find out I was like, they found a phone and it was Annette's. She had been an ATF agent. That was a shock. I was like, wow, interesting. And that's the sad thing is, like, out of anyone in the house, those two, Reacher and her, got along the best. Well, I mean, obviously, Richard as well, but him and Annette got along well, especially when some of McCabe's guys were giving her shit earlier, and she like talked mad shit to them in French, and Reacher like laid the guy out. And asked the other guys like, yo, you got any more commentary on dessert? He was like, yo, man, I got diabetes. I'm good. But just for it to play out like that way, it's just sad. You're like, damn. And Reacher's like, all right, let me find her. Let me interrogate her. But Paulie already killed her. Wasn't trying to, but basically he hit her trying to get a confession out of her. And in the process, he ended up killing her. He hit her once based on what he was saying, but it's just he's stupid strong and he ended up killing her. Reacher tried to get pissed at him and tried to hit him. Did nothing. He hit Reacher and kind of almost laid him out. Luckily, he was still on his I think he kind of fell down to his knees, but you're like, yo, you never seen Reacher. I mean, once again, Paulie is a monster of a dude. So you're like, you knew this showdown was going to happen eventually. It probably won't really go down until the season finale because you're going to have that duke out because even Reacher talks to Richard later. He's like, I don't have a plan for him, which, Richard's like, it's okay to be scared of these guys. I'm scared of these guys. My dad is. I don't think he's necessarily scared of Paulie, but I think it is a thing of Richard usually isn't in a situation where he doesn't know how to deal with someone. He's able to pretty quickly figure out, but it's like, he wasn't expecting a dude that big to be that fast. Not unless we find out like Reacher's like going to reveal later on, like, nah, I went easy on you. But it's like, nah, I think that shit really caught him off guard, so... But I think it's also like he's so pissed that like he's like I got get back for Elliot, which is also my own self-preservation. But he was pissed at I think not being able to get retribution for Annette. Like if he could have taken Paulie down. Also, like Paulie's been talking all mad kinds of shit, and so is Reacher. Now it's like Paulie kind of puts you in your place, so it's like you got to deal with him running things because he kind of showed that he can put you in your place, and you kind of have to eat that. You have to take that for now. So, but Reacher's going to get his get back. But like I said, it probably won't be until the season finale. I feel like that feels like a climactic thing. But they could always do the thing of it's like, oh, we're about to get this big battle, and then it ends up once again, the few things I know about Indiana Jones, the dude swinging the scimitar around, and then Indy just grabbing the gun and shooting the guy in the fight. It could easily just be a thing like that, but we'll see. But yeah, that Annette thing is sad. It's once again, they also being the only secret agents amongst this whole situation. But her being ATF does explain and gives explanation of what this whole thing's been about. It's not been about drugs. It's been about guns. And so Duffy and Reacher talked it out and pieced it all together. But this also plays into what Reacher says later on, where he's like, they immediately killed Annette the moment they found out she was ATF. To be fair, it was Paulie, whether he really... I don't think he meant to, but I think he also didn't really carry the way. But because even Harley was like, yo, we probably shouldn't have killed her. We do need to get information on her. But it's like, yeah, not knowing like, yo, if we knew about that, we could have been there for each other. So I wonder, did she kind of have a soft spot for Reacher because she's the one that dropped off the pie for him after the whole like thing with McCabe's guys, and she left a note saying that her seat, so you're just like, she definitely had a soft spot for him, and so I wonder, does she kind of like, she probably saw the good guy he was just in a very unfortunate situation. I don't know, man. I just, because I almost want to go back to the levity moment that was happening in the kitchen too, where like the other maid, was it Agnes? I think is her name. Maybe not. I think it is. With the whole coffee thing, and it's like, oh yeah, it's coffee from a cat's asshole, and it's like, what? It's like, yeah, they feed certain things to a cat, and then they pull stuff out of their litter box, and that's what they do for the coffee. It's like, huh. And I love that, like later on, after dealing with the McCabe thing, you see him still tasting the coffee, and he's just like, huh. Cat's asshole, I just love that. So had to add some levity to the depressing angle that is, like, once again, that double whammy of both Elliot and Annette. That sucks, especially later on when they're getting rid of her body, and Reacher just like turns her head a little bit and covers her up a little, and Harley's just running his mouth the entire time about things, about what he's gonna have to do now because baby doll and yada yada yada. And Reacher, because he couldn't really take it out on Paulie, takes it out on Harley, and he's like, oh, I finally found your off switch. Punched him so hard, motherfucker like spewed up some bile. It just hit him so damn hard and hit him in just the right spot. So it's also sad too, because like, she doesn't even get a proper burial. Like, I don't even know, like, I mean, that's the whole point. You'll probably like have to really go out of your way to find their bodies, if you can even find them at all. So like, she doesn't even probably get a proper burial, so it sucks because she was a good person, which I think fits thematically with the whole element of like Reacher helping out Duffy and then Duffy helping out Reacher, with the whole thing of, oh yeah, like, helping save a good person is kind of a low bar, in the grand scheme of things, so you don't really have to thank me for it. But it's kind of sad, like in that same vein of how Duffy had to lie to Elliot's dad about how he died. And it's like, it is a thing of, he did literally save my life earlier this episode, and sadly you couldn't do the same thing for him. So that also probably adds even more to her guilt. And for her, it's like, when it's all said and done, the truth will come out after this is over with. Like, even if she's like, if I lose my job, so what? I need to, after this whole like shit show of a situation. So, but it's like, she's got to see this through. She's got to save Teresa. But like I said, later on, Reacher kind of lays it out for her. It's like, there's a good chance Teresa's already dead. And she kind of already knew it to some extent, but she didn't want to ever really admit it, or, she couldn't bring herself to admit it. So, but later on, Beck has Reacher with him. It's like, we're going to go meet McCabe. And it's like, well, Reacher and him have history, so he would remember, unless the story he told about, the thing we know about him having amnesia after getting shot. I mean, you would probably have some, like, you probably wouldn't be, that wouldn't be complete BS. Maybe he remembers some things post, like, getting shot in the head. That would do something to your memory, getting shot in the head, but who knows? So there's a good chance he doesn't remember Reacher. I think there's a really strong possibility, but Duffy's like, how about letting us back you up, because you're going in there, that's basically suicide. For him, it's like, I don't care what happens to me. Like, the fact of the matter is, for him, it's like, I missed my opportunity with Quinn before. I'm not going to do it again. This was my mess to clean up, and I'm going to, regardless of it all. So just more, I mean, especially because, for Reacher, it is that thing. And Billy had said it last episode, like, we're kind of in this situation because Reacher did what he did, or didn't do what he did all those years ago. If he had killed Quinn, maybe we wouldn't be where we are right now. And I'm sure that is on him, where it's like, yeah, Elliot, kind of on me. Duffy's going to feel that. Reacher probably won't feel as, as responsible, but it's still, yeah. Obviously, the Dominique of it all is the one he feels the most responsible for, even though, once again, that is Quinn, but it's still like, I'm the one that told you to go arrest him, so, but in the net of it all, it's like, you couldn't really do anything about that because you didn't know, but you still feel guilty because, once again, it's all a byproduct of Quinn still being alive. So it all trails back to your fuck up, set all this in motion. That still, so that I don't know if he'll ever outwardly express that sentiment, but Reacher is that type of character who could silently like blame himself, and you never really know it because he, man, a few words and everything, right? So by the end of the episode, it's we're about to come face to face with McCabe, and for Reacher, it's like, oh, I've been waiting for this. So we'll see if things go down the way he did. Probably if Quinn doesn't remember him, then it'll probably be a situation of, well, I'm interested to find out where we're going to have a twist where it turns out that he's not actually McCabe. Because I brought that up that in that episode where I was like, when they took a picture of Quinn, I was like, well, I know that's Quinn, and they're assuming that's McCabe, but maybe he's not. He could be McCabe's right hand guy and not actually McCabe. Who knows? But there's a strong possibility he actually is in fact McCabe. But I just, got to leave that window open, because I'm like, how is this situation going to get resolved? It could just simply be like, hey, he doesn't remember Reacher, or it could be like, no, he isn't McCabe, and they're actually going to meet up with someone else entirely. So we'll have to wait to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all this. Obviously, we've only got 3 episodes left this season, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.